Giovanni Gentile, one of the primary philosophers of fascist ideology, was of the belief that what we think is the same as what we act. Mind is pure act, and act is merely a product of the mind. And this is the idealist conception of reality, that everything is within the mind, nothing outside the mind, and nothing against the mind. Everything is a construction of our ability to conceive, and what is conceived and believed in is real. What cannot be conceived, what cannot be believed in, is not reality. Idealism holds that everything, regardless of matter, regardless of atoms, is a construction of our ability to conceive. Everything is based upon conception. The activity of the mind is what shapes reality, and, by extension, our social structures. Applying this metaphysical worldview to politics and the human spirit, as Giovanni did, he ended up with the spiritual nation-statism promoted at the core of all fascist ideology. The subject, the conceiver, will be able to conceive an object. The object and the subject are one, no different the same way that one's relation to the head of state, the deuce, is no different from themselves. The deuce is an extension of them, and everyone within a nation, everyone under the heel of the spiritual state, are connected collectively, one people moving throughout time and space, represented by their shared cultural and national identity. Unlike other demographics and various ideologies, bourgeois jewelry, materialist Marxism, and liberal decadence, fascism holds that the people, united as one, together like a bundle of sticks, are able to use might to make right if that might is placed in the hands of the correct dictator. Someone proud of his nation, his people, wanting to liberate them from the hedonistic lifestyles they used to have, to make them proud to fashion them as new men and women, with new vitality and spirits, based upon a love for their national community. The subject and the object are no different. There is no difference in the idealist conception of reality. So naturally, there is no difference between state and individual. The state is an extension of the individual, the same way there is no difference between the nation. The nation exists within the state. The state is what holds up everything. The state binds us all together, all our consciousnesses, as one, our personalities, our traits, our beliefs, our ideologies, and, under the heel of the state, is able to give everyone what they need, to make them live as the fullest versions of themselves, so they can be a lion every single day of their lives, as opposed to a mere sheep. Giovanni Gentile greatly outlines the difference between fascism and regular normative nationalism, nationalism that existed prior to fascism, that was devoid of the spiritual essence which fascism gave to the nation and to the state. The politics of fascism resolves wholly about the concept of the national state, and accordingly it has points of contact with nationalist doctrines, along with distinctions from the latter which it is important to bear in mind. Both fascism and nationalism regard the state as the foundation of all rights, and the source of all values in the individuals composing it. For the one as for the other, the state is not a consequence, it is a principle. But in the case of nationalism, the relation which individualistic liberalism, and for that matter socialism also, assumed between individual and state is inverted. Since the state is a principle, the individual becomes a consequence. He is something which finds an antecedent in the state. The state limits him and determines his manner of existence, restricting his freedom, binding him to a piece of ground whereon he was born, whereon he must live and will die. In the case of fascism, state and individual are one and the same things, or rather, they are inseparable terms of a necessary synthesis. Nationalism, in fact, founds the state on the concept of nation, the nation being an entity which transcends the will and the life of the individual, because it is conceived as objectively existing, apart from the consciousness of individuals, existing even if the individual does nothing to bring it into being. For the nationalist, the nation exists not by virtue of the citizen's will, but as datum, a fact of nature. For fascism, on the contrary, the state is a wholly spiritual creation. It is a national state, because, from the fascist point of view, the nation itself is a creation of the mind, and is not a material proposition. It is not a datum of nature. The nation, says the fascist, is never really made. Neither, therefore, can the state attain an absolute form, since it is merely the nation in the latter's concrete political manifestation. For the fascist, the state is always, in fiere, it is in our minds wholly, whence our very serious responsibility towards it. But this state of the fascists, which is created by the consciousness and the will of the citizen, and is not a force descending on the citizen from above or from without, cannot have toward the mass of the population the relationship which was resumed by nationalism. Nationalism identified state with nation, and made of the nation an entity pre-existing, which needed not to be created but merely to be recognized or known. The nationalists, therefore, required a ruling class of an intellectual character, which was conscious of the nation, could understand, appreciate, and exalt it. The authority of the state, furthermore, was not a product but a proposition. It could not depend on the people. Rather, the people depended on the state, and the state's authority as the source of the life which they lived, and apart from which they could not live. The nationalistic state was, therefore, an aristocratic state, reinforcing itself upon the masses through the power conferred upon it by its origins. The fascist state, on the contrary, is a people state, and as such, the democratic state per excellence. The relationship between state and citizen, not this or that citizen, but all citizens, is accordingly so intimate that the state exists only as, and in so far as, the citizen causes it to exist. Its formation, therefore, is the formation of a consciousness of it in individuals, in the masses, hence the need of the party, and all the instruments of propaganda and education which fascism uses to make the thought and will of the deuce the thought and will of the masses. Hence the enormous task which fascism sets itself in trying to bring the whole mass of the people, beginning with the little children, inside the fold of the party. And because the state rules over, with absolute power, because the state is one with all citizens, and is connected spiritually, intimately, to the nation, it's able to shape new men and women from their former selves. For men, they're supposed to have physical strength, independence, aggressiveness, competitiveness, objectivity, and be rational acting beings, never to lie, to have a sense of vitality always in them, and to never be inactive, to always venture forward, take risks, and maybe even die in the line of duty for one's nation, for one's state, self-sacrifice for a higher cause. And by comparison, women, traditionally feminine, they'll become more cooperative, affectionate, attractive, emotional, dependent upon male figures, but also independent within their own lives, what they can experience individually, to inspire themselves and live up to their own goals and morals, to be religious, gentle, and strong in terms of their sensibilities. Fascism seeks to create completely new human beings, from the ashes of the old world, like a phoenix reborn, completely shedding everything that once existed, blazing it away, and then creating a whole new order of people free, but their liberty, their freedom, can only exist within the state. The state is the greatest parent of them all. It allows them to live their lives, to be the fullest version of themselves. And in that sense, fascism is, in philosophy, very beautiful.